All right, as you see there, very fiery debate that's ongoing right now on the House floor. This happening on a very busy day on Capitol Hill, as we're hearing not only there in the House chamber, but from senators as well leading up to their vote. But again, it is official now that that procedural vote that was held there in the Senate has now officially failed on the War Powers resolution. I do want to put this live vantage point before we slide away for our final 2-minute commercial break of the hour. The vantage point there of the Senate floor. Ultimately, this did fail. It is important to note this as well. Putting this up on your screen, the image there of Democratic lawmaker Senator John Fetterman, the Democrat from Pennsylvania. He was the lone voter at the time, Democratic lawmaker, to vote in the yeah column there on the War Powers resolution. Wanted to make sure we're able to give you all of these updates here on Live Now from Fox. We are going to take this opportunity to slide away for our final 2-minute commercial break. Much more on all of these top stories when we return.
And welcome back to Live Now from Fox. So much going on right now on the Capitol, both on the House side and Senate side. Hi, everyone. Mike Pace here. Thanks so much again for joining us, continuing to be with you on the very latest with the strikes in Iran. Middle East conflict continues. Just moments ago on the Senate side, we saw debate early in the afternoon on the Iran War Powers resolution. The Senate vote just failed there as the Senate just shot down the Democrat-pushed War Powers resolution that would have reined in President Trump's Iran strikes. We did have 2 Republicans that voted against the party there, Senator Rand Paul and Senator Lisa Murkowski as well. Now what we want to do is take you out to the House side. There is not expected to be a vote on this side until tomorrow, but the debate is happening right now. Let's listen it.
Through our armor. One day, on a trip to Sadr City, I watched...
All right, so here's what just happened. The Senate held a vote about presidential war powers, basically Congress saying, hey, maybe we should follow the Constitution and vote before the U.S. launches military action. Pretty standard idea. Congress is supposed to have a say when it comes to war. Well, after that vote, Donald Trump completely lost it on Truth Social. And I mean, he really went off. He started calling people stupid. He was throwing around the word traitor, and he was openly threatening to back primary challenges against Republican senators, not Democrats, Republicans, members of his own party. Why? Because some lawmakers had the nerve to say maybe Congress should vote before the president takes military action. That's what set him off. Trump clearly could not handle the idea that anyone at all would question his authority to wage war without Congress signing off first. So he jumps on Truth Social and just unloads. Post after post complaining that the vote undermines American self-defense and weakens national security. But here's the part that makes this whole thing even stranger. The resolution didn't even pass. Republicans blocked it. The measure failed. Nothing actually changed. Trump technically won the fight. And yet he's reacting like he just took a massive political loss. He's acting like Congress stripped him of his power, like lawmakers suddenly turned him into some powerless figurehead, but that's not what happened at all. The vote failed, the resolution went nowhere, and his authority stayed exactly the same. So this wasn't really about the result. It was about the fact that members of Congress, even Republicans, dared to challenge him in the first place, and that alone was enough to send him into a full meltdown online.
A massive, what's called an MRAP, armored personnel carrier, explode in front of me from an Iranian bomb, and watched as that hulking metal burned to a crisp as American servicemen and women sought to deal with the aftermath. This terrorist regime has killed thousands of their countrymen, killed Americans across the Middle East, and it's time for them to come to an end. This is a partisan political maneuver by the Democrats, and they should be ashamed for what they're doing to put our servicemen and women in danger. And with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields.
Reserve.
Gentleman from Florida reserves. Gentleman from New York is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. I just would remind the gentleman this is a Massey bill. Yes, I yield 1 minute to the gentleman from New York, Representative Jerry Nadler.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in strong support of this resolution and of reasserting Congress' constitutional responsibility. As the gentleman from Florida stated, The president has the power to react to an attack on the United States. He does not have the power to start a war. President Trump's illegal strikes against Iran are dragging the United States into another costly war in the Middle East. To be clear, I shed no tears over the Ayatollah's death. His brutality was responsible for the deaths of scores of his own people, and he directed terrorist proxies around the world. But his removal is unlikely to bring about the revolution and regime change the president seeks. We had a diplomatic agreement with Iran that did contain their nuclear threat with constant verification. But President Trump...
Here's the real tell in all of this. Trump isn't just mad about a Senate vote. He's not just irritated that a few Republicans stepped out of formation. He's furious that anyone even tested him. That's the part eating at him. The idea that Congress might actually assert its constitutional role on war, that lawmakers might say, hold on, you don't get to do this by yourself, that is what sends him over the edge. Because let's be honest about the image Trump wants to project. He wants to look like the guy fully in command, the unquestioned leader, the center of gravity in the Republican Party, the man everybody follows without hesitation. But that's not what this looked like. Instead, you had Rand Paul breaking with him, you had Thomas Massie pushing back, you had Democrats finding common cause with libertarian-minded Republicans to try to put limits on his war powers. And Trump clearly could not stomach that. So what does he do? He runs straight to Truth Social and vents. He starts throwing out insults, talking about traitors, threatening consequences, promising political revenge for anybody who dares cross him. That is not the behavior of somebody who feels secure. That is the behavior of somebody who sees the first cracks forming and is trying to smash them shut before they spread. And that's what makes this so revealing. Step back and look at the actual result. The Senate votes on the War Powers Resolution. The count is 53-47. Republicans block it. Trump gets the outcome he wanted. Congress does not limit his authority to wage war on Iran. On paper, this is a win. Full stop. He got exactly what he was fighting for. And yet he reacts like he just got blindsided in a humiliating defeat. Why? Because Trump is not focused on the vote he already won. He's focused on what this vote signals going forward. He's looking at the next war powers fight. He's looking at the possibility that the next time military action comes up, the resistance could be stronger. He's looking at the early shape of a coalition forming against him, Democrats on one side, Libertarian Republicans on the other, and maybe more GOP lawmakers joining if this keeps escalating. That's the danger he sees. Because once that coalition exists, even in rough form, it becomes a real problem for him. That's the kind of alliance that could eventually force him to go through Congress. That's the kind of alliance that could actually put limits on what he can do militarily. And that prospect clearly terrifies him because Trump has built his whole political identity around the idea that his power is supposed to be total. He's the president, so in his mind, he moves. Everybody else salutes. He orders strikes, nobody questions it. He escalates, nobody checks him. Congress, in that worldview, is background noise. But now, for maybe the first time in a serious way during this second term, he's being reminded that it doesn't actually work like that. Congress can push back. His own party can push back. There are limits, at least in theory, and he is raging against the idea that those limits might ever be enforced. So he lashes out. He calls people stupid. He labels dissent as betrayal. He threatens primaries. He promises payback. He's trying to make the cost of opposing him so high that nobody tries it again. That's what this really is. Intimidation, politics. It's not persuasion. It's not coalition building. It's not leadership. It's a warning shot to his own side, fall in line or pay the price. And the timeline here matters. This all comes after the 4th of March 2026 Senate vote on a war powers resolution tied to Iran. The resolution was simple in principle. Any further military action against Iran beyond what had already happened in Operation Epic Fury should require congressional approval. That is a basic constitutional argument. Congress declares war. Congress authorizes military force. That's how the system is supposed to function. But the resolution failed. Republicans blocked it 53-47. Trump's authority remained intact. He won. And still, he went on Truth Social, acting like Congress had just declared open rebellion. He called the war powers effort unconstitutional. He said it undermined American self-defense and national security. He framed it as an attack on his commander-in-chief authority. But again, none of that changed the underlying fact. The resolution failed. He got his way. So why the fury? One huge reason is that even a single Republican voting against him was enough to set him off. Rand Paul crossed over and supported the resolution. Just one Republican. That was all it took. Trump reportedly made angry calls to GOP senators who had supported advancing the measure earlier. He started threatening primaries. He started talking about political punishment. He basically declared that anybody in his party who questions his war-making authority is fair game. That tells you everything about how he operates. This is not about carefully weighing constitutional principles. It is not about an honest debate over military policy. It is about control. Trump does not want a party that sometimes agrees and sometimes disagrees. He wants obedience. He wants reflexive loyalty. He wants a Republican Party where every member knows that if they vote their conscience, if they follow the Constitution instead of following him, he will come after them. And that kind of politics is poisonous for a party. Because once senators and House members believe that one independent vote could trigger a primary challenge backed by the president, they stop acting like independent lawmakers. They stop thinking like constitutional officers. They start acting like survivalists. Their calculations change from what is right to what keeps me alive politically. That's how you build a rubber stamp party. That's how Congress becomes ornamental. And that is clearly the direction Trump wants to move things. What makes this even more important is that it fits a pattern. This was not a one-off episode. Back in January, there was another war powers fight connected to Venezuela, and Trump threatened 5 Republican senators who didn't line up behind him. 5. Same playbook. Congress raises questions. Trump responds with anger, threats, and political intimidation. That pattern matters because it shows this is not an isolated emotional outburst. It's becoming a governing style. And inside the GOP, that's already creating real fear. Lawmakers are being forced into a brutal choice: uphold their oath and risk their career, or protect their career and go along with Trump. That's not healthy party discipline. That's coercion. It also connects directly to the broader fracture already forming inside Trump's base over Iran. The isolationist wing, the Rand Paul wing, the anti-war conservatives, the America First voters who thought Trump meant fewer foreign entanglements. Many of them are already upset about these strikes happening without Congress. They believe this is exactly the kind of drift that led America into Iraq and Afghanistan. And now, instead of trying to calm that concern, Trump is escalating it by threatening the very people voicing it. That is not how you heal a divide. That is how you deepen it. Because now the argument is no longer just about foreign policy. It becomes personal. It becomes a fight over whether Trump respects constitutional limits at all. It becomes a fight over whether any Republican is allowed to say no to him without being politically targeted. And heading into the 2026 midterms, that is dangerous territory. The Republican coalition is not some monolith. It includes libertarian Republicans, anti-war conservatives, constitutional conservatives, populists, hawks, and traditional party loyalists. If even a slice of that coalition starts deciding Trump no longer represents what they signed up for, turnout becomes a problem. Enthusiasm becomes a problem. Voter motivation becomes a problem. That's how you lose House seats. That's how Senate races get tighter. That's how a party in power turns what should have been a manageable midterm into a self-inflicted mess. So when Trump melts down after technically winning, it tells you this is not just about one vote. It's about his political survival. It's about whether he can hold together a coalition that is already showing stress fractures. And there are a few huge takeaways here. First, Trump cannot tolerate dissent, not even in microscopic doses. He won this vote. The resolution failed. Congress did not limit him. Most presidents would take the win and move on. They'd try to lower the temperature, maybe even show some grace. Trump does the opposite. He responds to victory with threats and insults because, for him, disagreement itself is the offense. The problem is not losing power. The problem is anyone suggesting he should have limits in the first place. Second, this behavior is making Republican divisions worse, not better. The foreign policy split was already there. Now Trump is turning that split into a loyalty test. That's a risky move when your coalition depends on people who thought they were voting for restraint, not open-ended military escalation. The more vindictive he gets, the more he pushes some of those voters and lawmakers away. Third, Congress is not done with this. The War Powers Resolution failed this time, but the coalition behind it is not going away. Democrats plus Libertarian Republicans is not enough yet, but it's enough to keep applying pressure, and every new military move creates another chance for that coalition to grow. Every new vote forces Republicans to choose again, Trump or the Constitution. Eventually, some of them may choose the Constitution. And fourth, all of this suggests real panic underneath the surface. A confident president doesn't need to threaten his own party over a single vote. A confident president can absorb dissent. Trump can't. He needs absolute loyalty. And when he doesn't get it, even from one person, he reacts like the whole structure is slipping away. That's not confidence. That's fear. So the bottom line is this. Trump got the result he wanted. The war powers resolution failed. He kept his authority. But instead of acting like a winner, he acted like a man who sees trouble coming. He called people stupid. He talked about traitors. He threatened primaries and political revenge. And in doing that, he exposed the real story here. He is not just angry about a vote. He is worried about losing control of Congress, control of the narrative, control of his party, and maybe eventually control of the coalition that has kept him politically dominant. And when a